Right now, deep inside your skull, your hippocampus is quietly discarding the information you think you're saving, and the memory researchers who discovered this admit they have no way to stop it. Every word you type triggers a neural shortcut that bypasses the only process that makes knowledge permanent. High performers have found the one rule that interrupts it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what it is. You type notes because it feels efficient. You capture more words, more detail, more coverage. But that feeling of capturing is exactly the problem. Your brain cannot distinguish between understanding something and recording it. When your fingers hit keys at 60, 70, 80 words per minute, your brain shifts into what neuroscientists call transcription mode, a cognitive state where the goal is accuracy, not comprehension. You are functioning as a human dictation machine. And while that is happening, the part of your brain that was supposed to take that information and stamp it permanent, your hippocampus, your memory's filing system, is receiving almost no signal at all. Not because you weren't paying attention. Because the way you were paying attention told your brain this information didn't need to be kept. Here is what is actually happening inside your skull. Every time you handwrite a letter, a curve, a word, you are executing a complex, imprecise motor sequence. Your motor cortex, your cerebellum, the regions that coordinate movement, they work harder. They slow down. They produce a signal that ripples through your neural architecture and says, "This is effortful, this matters, hold it." That effort signal reaches your hippocampus. It is the biological flag for long-term storage. Typing doesn't produce that flag. The keystroke sequence for any letter is identical every single time. F is F, K is K, your motor cortex barely registers it. The effort signal is missing. And without that signal, your hippocampus treats incoming information the way your email client treats a CC, seen, technically processed, and almost immediately buried in a folder you will never open. We are getting to the rule that interrupts this. But first you need to understand why this is worse than it sounds. The researchers who mapped this found something that made the data uncomfortable. Memory scientists ran the experiments, replicated them, published them. Students who typed their notes retained dramatically less than students who wrote by hand. Not marginally less. Dramatically. Not one study, multiple studies, multiple countries, multiple subject areas. The uncomfortable part is not the finding. It is what it means for every classroom, every lecture hall, every corporate training room that handed everyone a laptop and called it progress. The people running those institutions know, some of them. And they cannot walk it back, because a decade of productivity theater is not reversible by a neuroscience paper. So the evidence sits in journals almost nobody reads, and the behavior that is quietly deleting your learning stays the default, until you know what to do instead. Now here is the part that is going to sound wrong. Taking more thorough notes, typing more, capturing every sentence, every idea makes your recall worse, not better. The more complete your typed transcript, the less you actually learned. This has been documented. It is replicable. Most people reject it the first time they hear it because you have been told your entire life that complete notes equal complete retention. That is exactly backwards. When you can type everything verbatim, your brain never has to decide what is important, what is novel, what deserves permanent storage. It outsources that judgment to the document. And once the judgment is outsourced, your hippocampus logs off. You have the file. You have none of the knowledge. We are almost at the rule. What high performers figured out, and this is the part that does not appear in the productivity books, is that the goal of notes is not to capture information. The goal of notes is to force your brain into a state where encoding happens automatically. And the mechanism is constraint. When you cannot write fast enough to transcribe verbatim, you are forced to decide, in real time, what the core idea actually is. That decision is the encoding event. That compression, taking a complex concept and reducing it to the fewest accurate words, is exactly the cognitive effort that fires the hippocampal signal. The effort is the point. Handwriting is just the slowest, reliable way to create that constraint. High performers who understand this don't take notes to remember. They take notes to think. Some use what they call a 3-word rule. After each major concept, they stop and write by hand 3 words that could reconstruct the full idea from nothing. Not a sentence, not a summary. 3 compressed, chosen words that your brain cannot produce without actually understanding what was said. That act of compression triggers the encoding sequence that typing never reaches. The information moves from working memory toward long-term storage, not because you wrote it down, but because you had to choose it. Tonight, if you are reviewing anything, a lecture, a chapter, a meeting, stop typing. Take in one concept. Then write 3 words, handwritten, without looking back at your source. The slight friction you feel searching for the right words, that is your hippocampus engaging. That is the signal firing, once per concept. The rule is constraint, not volume. But the hippocampus is not the only region being silently bypassed by the way you work. There is another structure, deeper and older, that controls which memories your brain is even permitted to keep. And most people are suppressing it every single day without knowing it exists.